This is going to be a 10,000 hour review. The mill actually has 10,700 and some hours on the mill, but I just wanted to go over some things with you guys and show you what has failed or wore out over that time period. This is a 2015. It's one of the early production mills. And a lot of the stuff you guys have seen over the life of this, if you look on the channel, I try to do videos showing things that we've fixed or had to redo. So this may be a refresher for a lot of you guys, but I just wanted to make a long-term video for everyone to see. So we'll start back here at the back. On these Super 70s, you basically, the only thing that needs to be beefed up on these Super 70s is this part right here. So as I'd shown in one of the videos, this swags down. This bracket that goes from here to here, this swags down. Now what this causes is when you swing this around to here, it's not level all the way around. You can watch that arm go up, there it's down, it's sliding up because it goes in that groove there. This isn't strong enough, so you either got to put a plate on it or always keep it in this position that it's down at and make sure that it's level with the rest of them so you don't get a thick end on your board. As we move on up, these over time, what happens is, you know, you get these big logs on here. When they come on, they land and all the force goes into here and then your side arms. And a couple of mine, I noticed at about 9,000 or 8,000 hours on the bottom of here, where that bolt is, right here, at the top, the weld broke. So I had to level this back up and re-weld these bunkers on here. So basically, just look and make sure that your bunker part isn't cracked around through here. And this may help you guys. If I was looking at a mill that was 2015, 2016, 2017, and it had 10,000 hours on it, I wouldn't hesitate to buy one with that many hours because I know everything about the mills. But if you don't, this video will probably help you for things to watch for and things that have worn out. I had Woodmizer down last week. They did some diagnostics on the motor to see how hard we was pushing the motors on these. And so far in testing, I've had the most load put on any Super 70, at least in their testing. So what that tells me is I'm able to push my blade harder through the wood and put more load on my motor than anybody that they've tested thus far. Which is really great info. That tells me that I've got mine cutting really good and it's doing great. But here's the thing. So when you get all the load on here and it hits and it breaks these up, in this time period, I've replaced these probably twice. These little silver shims, because what happens is you I've even seen these bunkers here, these square plates, swag down in the middle. And so, like, if you took this plate off and you put a level on it, you want to check and see if it's level from here to here, because when they send them from the factory, these are perfectly level. And I don't mean level as in the bubbles in the middle. I mean that you don't have an air gap or light come in between when you put the level on it from here to there. So you don't want anything to have air space or light between it. The next thing, and we just replaced this completely. So if you look on this shaft, you can see how perfectly round this is. There's brass bushings inside here, and I'll show you guys one. I think I've got one over here. Let me see if I can find it. I try to throw all my little used parts that I've broke off or had to change in this for testing, and Woodmizer took a few of them just to look at. Do you know where any of those brass bushings are? They're little brass, but anyway, they're brass bushings in the side of this arm here, you've got one in the top and one in the bottom. And basically they keep this from wearing out the metal in here. In that time period, I've only had to change this one time. So these bushings, what happens, and I'm gonna show you on the front one, haven't changed it yet for the video purpose, but you can see how it's got play in it right there. And then the front is beveled. It's hard to see in the video, but you see how flat the face of that is from here down? It's where that bushing has got wore and it's got play in it, so it lets that sway a little bit. And what happened next was this shaft here wore, and it wore the inside of this arm down inside of here where it kicks these arms up. So all this works together. When these arms here go up, there's a cylinder that shifts every bit of that right down here. When it shifts that forward, it shifts your arms up. And then it's got a bar that runs down through here. And over time, all that's got bushings, grease fittings, and things like that in it. And mine was starting to get wore. And so this shaft that goes through here, it mounts back here. You got to take this whole box out to change it. So basically all your hydraulic hoses and everything through the bed rail run into that. And mine had got wore out, got some play in it, and it let the bracket break that goes through here. So I formed another bracket and put it in behind here with the new bolt, and then an extra bolt to hold it in place if it ever come out again. Just watch your side arms and your bushings in there. If you get a lot of play, that'll make the rest of that be able to shift and move. And so you just really want to keep that greased and taken care of. This here is worn out, and I've got to replace the bushings in it. If you look at how much play is in there, I don't know if you can tell in the video with me moving and it moving, but when this is all the way up, I can probably shift this clamp a 1/4 inch either way. And you shouldn't have that at all. So basically you've got bushings, brass bushings, inside of this arm that goes on this shaft here, and then you've got them going inside this for the tube up and down where this goes, pulls it up and down. That's wore out on mine in that time period, and I'm going to change every bit of that. I've got it all inside, but most of that is normal wear and tear, so that's not something that can't be fixed. And the way it's designed with those brass bushings, it works out perfectly fine. It's not like it's something that you can't fix or change. And the easiest way to get those brass bushings out is to take a Sawzall with a long blade and just cut each of the brass sides, cut one side here and one side here, and then you can basically just take a hammer and peck both sides and they'll fall out. Do the bottom the same way. Once I figured it out, it's not that big a deal to change. At first, it's kind of just figuring out how to do it. The other thing, now, if you look, I'll get on the other side and show you, but if you look on the side of this, and this is something that I made a video on earlier on, but basically, this is something I don't understand. It would be an easy fix, and Woodmizer has the ability to do it, but you'll want to watch here. So basically, when these come from Woodmizer, now this is what runs this whole piece here. So you've got a cylinder that raises your log turner up, and it is mounted on this here. Now, the bead of weld is only about, I've made mine a little bit longer, but you can see the original one here. It's about 1 inch on the top, and then they break it up across through there, and there's a bead here, a bead here, a bead here, and then it's the same way here. You've got one on the top and one on the bottom. Now what happens is all that force breaks this weld here and on the other side, and then it starts to crack this tubing right through here. And I've welded all mine up and sanded it off and fixed it. But it starts to break up through here because you've got this hole right here to clean out or to run hydraulic hoses. So watch that here and make sure that you're paying attention to that. And when you get one of these brand new, probably the best thing to do is just go get you 2 pieces of L channeling, put it in here, and just weld it up into it. At least on one side, it would make a world of a difference. Now, the next problem I've showed you guys in the video prior, but what happens is Woodmizer, the way they design this, it has one shaft or one hydraulic cylinder that goes down and runs this arm. Now, this arm is made to pick up all your logs. So if you get a really big log on here, it gets in the center of that, you're trying to turn it, you know, it's putting a lot of force and a lot of down pressure. Now, the way they design this is it has one, it's kind of hard to get you in here to see, but let's see if I can get this out. It has this bracket that's welded on from here down to here. And this cylinder can put a ton of pressure downforce on that. And what starts to happen is the bottom of this tubing, your framing, starts to crack out and you don't see it. And then before you know it, you go to press up on a log and you notice that that whole thing won't go up. This is still moving, but it's fell down and broke out of there. And I've seen several of these have this problem. If you're running them like us, I promise you, you'll have this problem. So what we done is we not only fixed it all back and welded it up like it was from the factory, but then we put bigger plating in on each side. Now you could take and cut this out and put a whole new piece in, or you can do like we've done and basically put bigger plating all the way around the framing and weld it into this. Since we've done that, we've never had an issue on that whatsoever. If you guys got any questions, just let me know in the comments. I'll gladly try to help you out with it, give you some specs on it. But you're gonna have normal wear and tear. But these two here, Woodmizer could easily fix that issue. And even if it raises the mill $150 for that little bit of bead to go down through there and to put those plates on, people would gladly pay it knowing that they're not gonna have that issue later on down the road. As we move forward, other than swapping this out to the newer style, like I had shown in the video, one more issue that I've had in my mill, I don't know if you guys have, but this cylinder here, over time, I've probably replaced this cylinder about 5 times. And the reason I think that is because this gets a whole lot of things hitting it. And so it gets a lot of beat pressure and it kind of messes the seals up in those. I don't really know how they'd fix that other than putting a bigger cylinder on it, because the limbs and stuff hit that. And then that'll slowly start to creep up over time. And as you run the mill, because it's got hydraulic pressure, because the seals are messing up in it, letting it fluid bypass. And so it'll slowly creep up as you're sawing and it builds pressure without you pushing the button or anything. But I haven't figured out a great fix for that. That's just something that I guess have to figure out something over time. The next thing that we had wear out, and I'll put a video at the end, but was the inside of this here. This whole inside of this part that's in this, where this belt rides in, it was worn and had grooves in it. I let Woodmizer take that back with them, and I would say to truly get all the horsepower to the log, you probably need to change that one out about 775 to 9,000 hours, depending on how you're running your machine. But I was starting to see a lot of vibration in my blades, and what it was is it was letting sawdust get in here and build up because the belt wasn't seated properly on that wheel. And when we put the new one on, I could instantly tell a big difference and how I could come through logs. And so I think that the belt was probably slipping in there a little bit. It had just got grooved enough that it was letting that happen. The newer meals are set up exactly the same. There's nothing different on the 23s, 22.5s. Now, this is a 15, like I said, and this has this bearing housing on it. I have had so much trouble out of this. What happens is this plate cracks off of it. This bolt breaks in here. The bolts that are into the back of this housing that are on this, they break away from this. I've got several videos on that. You guys can go back and look at it. But I probably have to redo this every 2,500 to 3,000 hours. Sometimes I have to do a bolt before that. But I don't know if it's just not sitting on there properly or what. Could just be ours, but I know my dad had a bunch of trouble out of his too. And the new ones do not have this anymore. They actually have a bell housing, which is a perfect fix for that. I don't know why that wasn't done from the beginning. The next thing you guys might want to watch for, and I didn't even notice it, but Woodmizer was down, one of the guys from Woodmizer, and this had a small crack starting to go through it. And he had just left a mill previously before that, and this had busted out. And I caught the crack and just ground it off and welded it, and I haven't fixed the weld since then. And so I'll have to fix that, paint it, make it look like new, but I just wanted to show you guys on that. I've replaced this airbag twice since I've had the mill, and what happens is it'll either start to let it shift on one side more than the other, and it doesn't air up properly across the board, and it lets this kind of shift down, and this will touch actually right here, and it shouldn't ever touch that bracket that's down there below that. So just watch that and make sure. I've probably replaced this radiator 3 times. What happens is, and you can see right here it's starting to leak. I'll have to replace it again, but it just builds up sawdust, and I guess it wears out the fins. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of dust and dirt and debris in here, so that just starts to happen over time, and it gets a hole in it, and you've got to replace it. But now this, from the factory, I did that. I hit it with a stick, so don't pay attention to that. But I've replaced this twice because the weld has cracked in it. So that's something else. The bearings and stuff, I've showed you guys in another video. The new ones, 22 and up, some of the 19s have got a different bracket system, and this framing here is thicker. So they fixed all this problem. We've got a 22 and we haven't had any trouble out of it yet. So if that's something you guys are familiar with, like I said, you can go back and look at the videos and stuff. I've put pictures and everything on here. But when you're buying one that's 17, 16, 15 model, just watch and make sure that it has the brackets on it and things like that. I also changed out all this manifold and everything. There's a video on it. I didn't have to actually do the manifold, but that was the quickest way to get this fixed. And for us, we're sawing high volume all the time. This isn't in a woodworking setup. And so basically, other than that, you've just got normal wear and tear stuff. I mean, you're gonna have to replace your rollers. You're gonna have to replace wipers, bearings, things of that nature, your belt, your drive belt. I've been testing a drive belt out, and I'm gonna release what it is later and tell you guys a little more about it, but I know for sure that I can put more torque in the log with this belt. The only problem I've seen with it is it grabs hard starting out, so you've got to adjust it lightly compared to the Woodmizer, but it will definitely let you saw faster and harder in the log. And so to me, seems like a better belt, and you can see the cogs on it, how they are. Now this belt's probably got roughly 700 hours on it, maybe a little more. But that thing, you can push it really, really hard through the log, and it's held up really well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've replaced. Oh, I replaced this at about, I don't know, I've got a video on it. I can't remember exact hours, but probably 1,500 hours ago. It had a small crack in the bottom right here where this seats. And it took me forever to figure that out. But finally I figured out what it was. I've never had to replace the alternator. I've replaced the battery on it one time. And other than that, I've not had any trouble out of the battery. These also wear out. So don't think that all this, I know it's metal, but I've replaced this stuff probably 4 or 5 times over the life of the mill. And what it does is this in here wears out that plating from vibration right in this area, and it lets this get slop in it, and it just doesn't hold as well as you'd like. And so I've replaced those, and I've also replaced this because the little bushing and stuff in it wears out. I mean, most of that stuff that's hitting debris and sawdust and going through the log every day, and we push our mills harder than anybody I've ever seen. You can look on YouTube. Most of these guys are sawing one log and talking about it for an hour. We literally saw over 1 million board feet a year, no problem. So it's one of those things that we're really testing these mills out, and a lot of you guys may never encounter any of the problems as far as things breaking if you're not putting a lot of hours on them. But if you're someone that's looking to put one of these in a high production setting, pay attention to all those things. Other than that, I mean, even with those issues, this mill has been a fantastic mill, and Woodmizer has went above and beyond with working with us and helping us, and just their customer service is bar none. I really don't know anybody that's got customer service like him. But like I said, I've got almost 11,000 hours on this mill, and it's treated me extremely well. I wouldn't hesitate to buy one with 10,000 hours on it. You can fix everything pretty easily that's wrong with them. And so just keep that in mind if you're looking at one of these.